Suppressors, case sorting, and Kestrel wind sampling this week on Mail Call Mondays. Mail Call Mondays is sponsored by Modular Driven Technologies. If you need a chassis system for your precision rifle, check out mdttac.com. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and I'm just sitting here stacking my powder like Scrooge McDuck counting his coins because I am so happy to have some H4350 back in again. We're starting to run a little bit low, and thankfully my father, who has got into shooting 6.5 Creedmoor, he's also gotten into reloading, and he was looking for powder and came across it, and so I had to throw in a little bit of an order with him. This will last me probably for a couple of months now, but the other problem we've run into is primers. I don't know what has happened to all the Federal Gold Medal Match large rifle primers, but I can't find them anywhere. I'm sure you guys are probably having the same problems, so we're going to switch over and try CCI BR2s, and I think we're going to have pretty equivalent performance. The problem is the BR2s are a little bit more expensive than the Gold Medal Match primers. I want to know, have you guys still been having trouble finding reloading supplies? If so, leave a comment down below. Tell me what it is that you haven't been able to find. Maybe we can get a little bit of cooperation going through the comment section, and those of you guys that are looking for stuff and those of you guys that know where to find it can get connected, and maybe we can help get a little bit more information out there on where to find our various components. Let's get on with the questions for this week, and our first question comes from one of our Patreon supporters, Andrew, and Andrew asks, can you go over suppressors, how they help or hinder long-range precision, what to look for when picking one out, do suppressor covers help, and any brand you suggest, a multi-caliber can versus dedicated can, etc. Thank you very much for what you do. You get me excited for Mondays. Well, Andrew, thank you very much. Again, thank you for supporting us on Patreon. And for those of you guys that want to know what Patreon is, I will leave a link down below in the comments section so you can check out another way that you guys can support us. Andrew, first of all, suppressors in precision rifle shooting, and I'll talk about the guy that I have here real quick. This is our Modular Driven Technologies ESS chassis that we are currently working on the review, but the rifle that is in this chassis is a Remington 700 AAC SD chambered in .308. Now the suppressor that we have on here, this is a Thunderbeast 30P1, and we have an Armageddon Gear suppressor cover on it. Now, the first part of your question, how suppressors help precision rifle shooting? Well, bench rest shooters have known for some time now that if you hang a weight on the end of the barrel, that can be beneficial for accuracy. It helps dampen out some of the harmonics. It controls the vibration of the barrel. Bench rest shooters have gone so far as to put devices that are adjustable barrel weights, they call them tuners, on the end of their barrels, and they can adjust various different things about that barrel weight to get the best accuracy out of certain loads. This is really applicable to .22 bench rest shooters where they don't have a lot of ability to work up various loads to adjust the harmonics with powder and bullets and that. They're kind of stuck with what the .22 ammunition companies are loading, and so they use barrel tuners to try to get the most out of the system. Well, I've noticed quite a bit on some precision rifles that when you hang a suppressor on the end of the barrel, it has a similar effect to a barrel weight or a barrel tuner. It will change those vibrations in the barrel, and sometimes this can be beneficial. So very often we've seen a rifle that just shoots okay. When we put a suppressor on it, those groups tighten up a little bit. And the suppressor isn't actually touching the bullet. The suppressor, the only way that it is actually having a direct effect on the bullet, it is it's helping to retard those gases from trying to blow by the bullet when the bullet comes out of the muzzle. So that's really the only direct effect it's having on it. I believe the effect in accuracy actually comes from the harmonics. Now, this is just an educated guess on my part. I don't have the ability to set instrumentation up on the rifle to actually check for any of that. I can't set strain gauges and various instrumentation on the barrel and check for the harmonics. It's just outside of the realm of our abilities right now. But I have seen adding a suppressor to a rifle tighten up groups on some rifles. Now, there are other rifles that are not affected at all, but at this point, I don't think I've seen a rifle where putting a high quality suppressor on it has reduced the accuracy. It's almost always an improvement. The second point where we get a little bit of improvement is recoil reduction. You will get a little bit of recoil reduction adding a suppressor. Now, it's not as much recoil reduction as adding a high quality brake. If you add a really efficient muzzle brake to the end of your rifle, you will get a higher recoil reduction than adding a suppressor. That's just the way it is. The brakes affect or divert gas to the side, so you have less gas coming out of the muzzle. With the suppressor, you still have those gases coming out of the muzzle. You don't have the redirecting of gases to offset the recoil. So that's just it. I mean, there are some suppressors that you can get that have a muzzle brake effect on the end. Various different companies have started to put those on their cans. However, I haven't got a chance to test those side by side with and without to see what kind of effect they actually give. But another great benefit of suppressors is that they reduce the concussion of the muzzle blast. Now, if you're just shooting in an open grassy field, this may not be that big of a deal. If you're shooting in and around barricades where there are all kinds of surfaces to reflect that muzzle blast back at the shooter, then a suppressor can work very, very well. Some precision rifle matches require you to shoot from inside of vehicles, inside of a van, inside of a concrete culvert, or metal Connex boxes, all kinds of things that really reflect that muzzle blast back. So a suppressor can reduce that, which will reduce your tendency to flinch, and it will also reduce your fatigue at the end of a long day. So you get a long 2-day match, that can make a big difference at the end of the match if you're just not constantly getting beaten up by the reflected muzzle report. So those are really the ways that the suppressor has a direct effect on you, the shooter, and a direct effect on the rifle system. I prefer suppressors because I think they're just kind of polite. They cut down that noise a little bit. So if I don't need peak performance, I like shooting with a suppressor on. Now, the negative side of suppressors are they are an extra thing to worry about. You need to make sure that they're tight, that they're not going to work loose during the match. You have to be concerned with the heat coming off of the suppressor. If I'm running a suppressor in a match, I will almost always run a suppressor cover on it because the suppressor cover will help reduce some of the mirage coming off of the can. Those heat waves coming off of your can can definitely affect your optics and how well you can see downrange. There are a ton of different suppressor covers out there. There are a ton of different options on various different styles, how they attach, how they remove. I really like the design on the Armageddon Gear suppressor cover here, and what it is a tube, and it has heat-resistant material on the interior, and it has a nylon outer cover on it. And the heat-resistant material comes all the way back and almost down to your barrel on the back. And what this allows the suppressor to do is it only goes on and off one direction. You put the suppressor cover on the suppressor while it is off the rifle, or slide the suppressor cover down over the barrel, then put your suppressor on, and then the suppressor cover can slide up over the suppressor, but it cannot slide forward because of the way the rear of the cover is designed. What this does is it prevents the cover from working forward and working off the rifle under recoil. Very often you will see guys shooting, and if they don't get the cover tight enough on there, it will work forward bit by bit until it is past the muzzle, and then when you fire, it starts to fray and destroy the cover because of the blast coming out of the suppressor. With this can cover, it really is not possible to do that. You can't pull it forward. Now you do have a bungee cord arrangement here, and here on the bottom is the cord lock, and that allows you to just adjust the tension of the cover on the can so that it's not sliding back as you shoot. I really like this design because when I'm done shooting and pull the gun off the line, I can just slide the cover back and allow the suppressor to cool. I think allowing the suppressor to cool off faster just really increases the longevity of the suppressor to begin with, but I think it also helps reduce a little bit of that mirage. The suppressor cover will help abate a little bit of the mirage, but your barrel is still heating up quicker as well, so you're still going to get mirage off the barrel. So if you can get it back and get everything cooled down quicker, that's better. Now this is a 20-inch barrel on this rifle, so when I slide the cover back, it impacts the fore end of the chassis system before it fully uncovers the suppressor. However, on other chassis systems or on a longer barrel, that hasn't been an issue, and I can pull it back and fully expose the can, allow it to cool off pretty quick. And again, it's really easy to slide back up there. I haven't had to adjust the bungees since I first adjusted it and got everything to my liking. So it really just works well. The only wear item on here would be the bungee. After a while, it's going to lose its stretch, and that's very cheap and easy to replace. Armageddon Gear makes some absolutely fantastic products. We've been kicking this thing around for a while, and it is really no worse for wear. Again, Armageddon Gear products are made here in the US. They sent us this cover out after we purchased our 30P1, and it's been working very, very well. It is specifically designed for the 30P1, although they do have some universal fit models. Just make sure you measure and you get the correct fit. You really don't want a sloppy cover on your rifle. It's going to move around, it's going to cause problems, and you're going to have the tendency for it to slide forward. I do recommend going with one that slides backwards. If you get the ones that slide forward off of it, you're really going to have to make sure that you check that before you hit the firing line every time to make sure that cover's not moving around. So that is about it on rifle suppressors and why you might want to use them or not use them on a match, and some different things to look out for. As far as brands, there are so many brands out there. We have not got a chance to test a wide variety of them, although we do have something in the works that we hope to announce soon that will allow us to get through and test quite a few more precision rifle and even some carbine and pistol suppressors. So hopefully we'll be able to talk to you guys about that very soon. Our next question comes from Tyler from Facebook, and Tyler asks advantages to sorting cases by volume and how to sort by case volume the right way. Well, Tyler, I don't know that there's exactly a right or wrong way. I will tell you how I would go about sorting cases if that was a step that I utilized in my reloading process. Now, first of all, let me tell you, most of the shooters that I know do not bother to weight sort or volume sort cases. They just simply buy high quality cases like Lapua brass or Norma brass, and then they just roll from there. They don't go in and sort each one. Now there's obviously case prep work where they're going to deburr the flash holes, all this stuff. But if I was going to sort my cases, then the way I would do it would be I would go through and I would do all my necessary processes on trimming, deburring, everything that you're going to do that's going to remove any brass from the cases. I would go ahead and prime the cases, and then I would take the cases, set the case on my scale, zero out my scale. So now it's 0 with the case on it. Then take a dropper of water and a little dish of water and drop water into the case mouth until you start to see the water just fill up the case mouth. Now, you know, water will have that surface tension, so it will give you a concave or a convex shape depending upon how much water you get into the case. So as you drop the water in, you're going to have to decide if you want that slightly convex or slightly concave surface tension, and do that same thing for every case that you're going to measure. So as you drop the water in, you're going to watch the scale go up, and when you get to that concave or convex shape, and I like to go slightly convex, that way if I go too far, the water is going to drip out and I know to throw that out and start over again, versus convex, you might be able to get a little bit too little in. But once I get to the point that I want, I'll read the water capacity, and then I will write down the water capacity from that case. Dump that case, start over again with the next case, and I will go down through the line and weigh the water capacity of each one of the cases. And I think that is the easiest / most effective way to gauge case volume. I'm sure there are umpteen other ways out there, but I think that dropping water in like that will give you the best idea. Now you do really need to prime them. That way you don't have water coming out of your flash hole. You could put Play-Doh or something else in there, but dropping a spent primer in will probably work just fine. And again, no matter which method you use, Play-Doh or primer or whatever, when you weigh the case, you're going to zero it out and you're just concentrating on the water capacity. So it doesn't matter if you're getting the exact same amount of Play-Doh into each and every one. Now you really don't want to do that with live primers, because I don't think it's a good thing to take a live primer and then expose that live primer to water. It may not have any effect on it. I haven't actually tested that. It just doesn't sound like a good idea to me. So if you're going to do that, do it with spent primers and then decap them again later on, or use Play-Doh. Now again, I think it's kind of a waste of time for tactical rifle shooting. If bench rest shooters will do this stuff, because bench rest shooters will utilize a limited number of cases and they will use those cases for quite some time. Tactical rifle shooters, we tend to use a lot more cases. An average 2-day match, you're going to want to have at least 200 rounds when you go to it. You may come away from that match with a 10 to 15% brass loss. So you may come out of it with quite a few cases still left in the weeds. So it's kind of silly, in my opinion, to spend all that extra time doing your weight sorting, and then of course you have the cases that you would cull as well. So you have more case loss before you even go into it. I don't think the difference in accuracy, even if you're taking something like Lake City brass or Federal brass, I don't think the accuracy advantage that you would get would really be realized in a precision rifle, PRS, tactical rifle type match. So my suggestion is don't worry about it. Buy quality brass, use quality brass, all from the same lot or all from the same source. Make sure that you have prepped it well, deburred your flash holes, trimmed it to length, done all that stuff, shot it in one gun, keep that brass dedicated to that gun. And I think that is realistic and energy effective steps to get the most out of your brass. Our next question is also from Facebook, and it's from Patrick. And Patrick asks, a lot of folks say I need special rods that cost $75 to make sure a suppressor is lined up properly. I'll be getting my first can out of NFA jail soon. It's a QD can I'll be putting on almost all my rifles. Are the rods worth it, or is the look down the barrel method fine? Well, Patrick, I tend to use the look down the barrel method. I think that that works very well, and assuming that you've already done your work and made sure that your muzzle was threaded properly by someone that knows what they're doing, or was threaded specifically for a suppressor, or came from the factory on a high-end gun ready to go, then the look down the barrel method is just a final check to make sure you're not going to send a barrel through or send a bullet through an end cap. So looking down the barrel should get you where you need to be. Now, if buying a range rod really helps you sleep better at night, then that's great. It's something that you'll be able to use. It's a tool you'll be able to use for the rest of your shooting career. And you get a new gun, you'll be able to throw that range rod in there and check it and be good to go. The disadvantage is you're going to need a separate range rod for each caliber that you're going to use. It doesn't really do good to try to use a 5.56 range rod in a 30 caliber. You're going to get a little bit of offset to it, and it may lie to you. So you'll need to get one for each caliber that you want to use it on. In your case, where you're going to buy one can and use it on several different rifles, if it was a 30 caliber can, I get a 30 caliber range rod because that is where you're going to have the tightest tolerances, and then not really worry about it on the other guns, because assuming again that the muzzle was threaded properly, you're going to have a ton of clearance on them. But again, I'll come back to it. I just look down the muzzle. Anytime that I have a new rifle in that I'm using a known good suppressor on, then the first thing I'm going to do is look at the muzzle to make sure that it appears that it is threaded concentric. If you really want to get crazy about it, you can break your calipers out and measure several different points around the muzzle and make sure those measurements all come out the same. That will give you a good idea that it's not grossly off, although it's really not as good of a check as taking it to a gunsmith, having them throw it in a lathe and indicate it and tell you if the threads are concentric or not. If you have a rifle that's suspect, it may just be worth the extra money to have a smith recut the threads and make sure it's good to go. So that's the first check. I'll then put the suppressor on it, sight down through the bore, and make sure that everything looks concentric when I'm looking through the bore. Once I've done that, then I'll go ahead and I'll set up a close range target, and I will fire one shot through the rifle. As soon as that one shot is fired, I'll clear the gun. I will take a look at the end cap, and I will make sure I don't see any streaks, any smears, any deformation, that I still have a nice perfectly round hole on the end of the end cap. And if it passes that, then I'll go down range and I'll look at the target, and I will make sure that I have a nice round bullet hole in the target. It doesn't really matter where the bullet hole hit, I just want to make sure that it is really perfectly round. Now, say it doesn't matter where it hits within reason. If all of a sudden you have an impact at 20 yards that is 8 or 9 inches off, then you need to stop and you need to really pay attention to what's going on, because you may have a baffle strike where the bullet is just barely kissing a baffle and sending it off to the side. So then you'll want to pull the can off and you'll want to look through it and see if you see any copper streaks on any of the baffles inside of it. But if you've gone through all those checks, I really don't see that the range rods are necessary. If you plan on buying a bunch of suppressors or you plan on utilizing it on a bunch of guns, $75 is really cheap insurance when you figure that you're paying a $200 tax stamp just to transfer the can. And if you catastrophically damage a can, then you're going to have to pay another transfer tax, even if the manufacturer decides to totally replace your can. Now, I would hope that you wouldn't have a severe enough baffle strike that it would destroy the body of the can. Generally, if you just blow an end cap out or something, that's something a manufacturer can fix. And there are some manufacturers out there that will actually give you one screw up free of charge. So that's kind of nice that manufacturers have gone to that extent. But for me, I will continue to use the sight down the bore method. It's worked so far. Hopefully it won't bite me in the butt in the future. Our next question on Facebook comes from Ian, and Ian asks, capturing wind in your Kestrel versus inputting. I've seen issues in output with both. The former can cause you to miss wind further out between the firing position and the near target, and the latter can cause issues if inputs are not correct. What's your method and why? Well, Ian, my method, first of all, in my Kestrel, I will generally set wind 1 for 5 mile an hour and wind 2 for 10 mile an hour. When I am filling out my dope card, either on my arm board or the sidewinder that I use on my rifle, I will put what I need for my drop, and then I will usually put the 10 mile an hour wind at that distance. Writing down the 10 mile an hour wind, no matter what the actual wind conditions are, gives me the ability on the fly to make corrections on my wind call. With 10 mile an hour, it's easy for me to do the math and get a 1 mile an hour wind. It's easy for me to guesstimate a 5 mile an hour wind, and of course I already have the hard 10 mile an hour wind. So if we need to go above that, then it's easy to start adding things and get very close. Wind is not an exact science. The ballistic computer can give you an exact answer, but very seldom is what the ballistic computer outputting the exact wind for your conditions. Even if you utilize the Kestrel to sample the wind at your firing point, that may not actually be the wind that is going on when you press the trigger. So I prefer to utilize that method to get the data written down. And then when I'm actually estimating the wind, I will stand at the firing point. I will feel what the wind is feeling like on my face, the rumble in my ears. I'll be able to turn my face and get a very good indicator of exactly which direction the wind is coming from, and then I will combine those factors to determine what my actual wind call is before I start the stage. Now, if you're unsure or if you're new to calling wind, you can use your face to get that direction, that wind direction, and hold the Kestrel up and look at it and see what it's telling you the wind speed is. Now, this is something you can do throughout your regular daily life when you're not at the range. Keep your Kestrel in your back pocket, and when you find yourself in a windy day or in a wind condition, just close your eyes, stick your face in the wind, hear how it sounds in your ears, feel the pressure against your face. If you have hair, I really don't have hair, but if you have hair, see how it feels in your hair or in your beard. Then look at the Kestrel and see what the wind speed is in the Kestrel. And if you do this time and time again for your low to intermediate speed winds, you'll be able to start getting a very effective feel for what the wind speed is. And this will help you if you are in a situation where you need to make a quick wind call and you don't have the ability to fish a Kestrel out and do all this nonsense. Now, once you've got that and you're at the firing point and you get an idea of what the wind is at the firing point, look at the trees, look at the vegetation, look at everything around you and see what the wind is doing to that environment right then. You can then look downrange and say, okay, at the midpoint, is it doing more or is it doing less? At the target, is it doing more or is it doing less? Is it doing the same thing? And that will give you an idea of what the wind is doing down the range. Now, I'm not going to make this into a complete and total wind reading episode because there's quite a few other things that go into it than that. But regarding the Kestrel and how I determine what to input in it, that's my method. I don't use the sampling feature of the Kestrel to input that into my ballistics. I use the 5 and 10 mile an hour wind in my drop tables and in my ballistic charts, and then I take the wind on the fly and use that. So when I actually begin, when I'm standing in the shooter's box, I'll feel what the wind feels like, say, okay, I'm getting ready. They're asking me if the shooter's ready. It feels like it's a 5 mile an hour wind, so I'm going to approximately half my 10 mile an hour value and roll with that. Again, talking about a full value, not half value, quarter value, etc. So that's how I do it. I'd really like to hear how you guys do it. How do you gauge your wind? Do you actually use the numbers coming straight off the Kestrel, or do you do like I do and set up a high and a low and then manually estimate the wind as you're going? So a bunch of different shooters have a bunch of different ways to do it. That's just my way. It doesn't make it the right way, doesn't make it the wrong way, but it seems to work for me. And that is about it for our questions for today. Got a couple of announcements for you guys. First of all, some of you asked us about Full30.com. Well, we are now on Full30. We have activated our channel on there. I probably will not be putting the Mail Call Monday show on Full30 at this point, not unless you guys have a great outcrying for it. But when we do our reviews, when we do any of our other stuff, we will be posting that on Full30.com as well as posting it up on YouTube. And we will leave the link to Full30 down below. There are a number of reasons for this, but obviously Full30 is a firearms-oriented channel. That's really their whole purpose. YouTube is not a firearms-oriented platform. So Full30 being firearms-oriented, Second Amendment friendly, then we have a whole lot less fear that our videos are going to be demonetized, taken down, complained against, all this nonsense. So Full30 is really a great thing for distributing this kind of media. So if you guys have not gotten on Full30 and checked it out, I really encourage you to do so. We will leave the link down below to our Full30 channel, and there is a lot of great content from other creators on Full30 as well. I was very happy that we were invited to come join Full30, and so we're going to do everything we can to maximize that platform. Next, we will be heading to Seattle at the end of this month for TriggerCon. We will be down there the 26th through the 29th. The first 2 days of TriggerCon are industry days. The second 2 days, that Saturday and Sunday, they're open to the public. We'll leave a link to TriggerCon's website down below, and you can go check that out. If you're in the Tacoma, Seattle area, then I definitely encourage you to drop by. We'll be available Saturday to meet and greet, talk to you guys. So if you see us out there, please roll up and say hi. Unfortunately, Sarah won't be going to this. I say us. It's really just going to be me running the camera and doing everything. But please come on up and say hi. I love to talk to you guys when I run into you out in the world. And finally, a lot of you guys have been asking us about the Remington 700 long range. We've had some, I don't want to say significant issues with that rifle, but I really have not been able to get the accuracy that I think a rifle labeled as a long-range rifle should have. So we're taking some steps to make sure that we didn't just get a lemon. I'm going to send it off, and I'm going to have the barrel threaded by Southern Indiana Precision. As I mentioned in this episode, sometimes when we hang a suppressor on a gun, things tighten up. So we're going to have the barrel threaded, we're going to hang a suppressor on it, we're going to hang a muzzle brake on it, do some things like that, and see if we can get it to snug up a little bit. Hopefully that will be the case, and hopefully we can get a little bit better accuracy out of it. The next step is going to be just to trash the barrel and put a new barrel on it. Really, the problem that we run into is the accuracy that it is giving is still enough that Remington will not replace or exchange it. I haven't even bothered to contact them yet. I know what their answer has been on rifles in the past that have shot like this. They don't really provide an accuracy guarantee on it because it is not a law enforcement gun. It's not a military gun. It's not from their custom shop. It's just one of their regular production rifles, and it is a budget production rifle. So you can't expect to get Accuracy International accuracy out of a Walmart priced gun. So we're not going to give up on it yet. But we've still got some things going on. So those of you guys that have been asking about it, that is the deal. And once we get it sorted out, we will give you the full scoop, the full history on the gun, and why it has been acting the way it is. So that is it for this episode of Mail Call Mondays. If you guys have questions for Mail Call Mondays, you can send them to us at 8541tactical@gmail.com, or you can leave them in the comments section below if you're watching us on YouTube, or you can send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. And until next time, get out and shoot!